Welcome to our Insight session today, discussing LGBTQIA plus equality and inclusion in British business. I'm Emily Price. I'm the COO of the British Franchise Association, and we're an organisation that represents franchisors and franchisees from across the UK. I'm really pleased to be joined by three amazing people today, and we're going to be talking about some taboo subjects, some subjects that need to be discussed to open the dialogue on this very important topic. Pip, I'm going to introduce you. Well, you can introduce yourself actually, and then we'll go through. Tell everyone who you are and what you do.
So hi, I'm Pip Wilkins. I'm the CEO of the British Franchise Association. As Emily's already said, we represent franchisors and franchisees in the UK market. And for us, it's really now starting to open the association to be much more inclusive, which is why we've invited you lovely people to talk to us today. Jasmine.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm here representing Banbury Business Improvement District. Banbury BID represents 388 businesses in and around Banbury Town Centre, and businesses pay a levy into a pot, and we're here to obviously support the businesses within that community.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Laura Wilder. I'm a McDonald's franchisee in Bristol, operating one restaurant, employing over 100 employees.
Fab.
Amazing, thanks guys. So I really want to kick off with the stats. So we were doing some research ahead of this session, and there are some findings from the LGBT in Britain report carried out by Stonewall. I'm going to read this. It says, almost 1 in 5 LGBT staff, so 18%, have been the target of negative comments or conduct from work colleagues in the last year because they're LGBT. What are your thoughts on this?
I was really saddened to see that in the report. I think from my perspective, thankfully, it's not something that I've witnessed within my organisation. In fact, it's actually something, sadly, that my employees face with the customers. We've had different levels of abuse towards employees, particularly those from the LGBT plus community. And so it's about making sure that we do everything we can as business owners to promote diversity, to promote a safe, respectful and inclusive environment within our organisations, our workplaces and our restaurants.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, isn't it? Because when you're in business and it's all about your staff, you can control that environment entirely with various different policies, processes and behavioural values, all of that kind of thing. But when your staff are serving such a broad customer base, I mean, how do you empower them to almost stand up to that or hold people accountable, whether it's the colleague themselves or their colleagues that might witness that behaviour? What do you do to help them with that?
I mean, we've got policies in place within my organisation that I think that's the key thing, is that you have those in place so that from you kind of laying the foundation so people feel that they're working in a place where they feel they're able to be themselves. And I feel really proud that my team are able to be who they want to be. I have employees that come to work and they leave their home in one uniform and with one name badge, and they come to the restaurant and they put another uniform on and another name badge because they feel that they can be who they want to be within the restaurant. And I think that's amazing that we have that.
But how do you engender that? Because at the end of the day, it's not somewhere, you're a big brand, that you have to have policies for this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of businesses don't. But how do you make people feel inclusive when they come into the workplace and really address it right from the outset?
I think within McDonald's and within my organisation, we have that culture that, a zero tolerance approach to any form of abuse, of harassment, of discrimination. That's really, really key. As a business owner, I lead from the front with that too, that we recognise DE&I, that we promote all the DE&I events, in the year. So obviously Bristol Pride for me is a huge event, something I'm really proud to support, something that I'm proud to sponsor every year. My team get involved, we go along to the parade as well, we decorate the restaurant, both floors of my dining area as well as the back area. So it's about raising awareness both to employees, to the customer, about creating that environment.
And Jasmine, you're looking at Pride, aren't you?
Yeah, I think for us it would be, there's lots and lots of different subcultures in Banbury, and that's what I love about the town, is we're sort of on the London overspill enough, so quite a lot of people that can't potentially afford to live in London would relocate to Banbury, which allows us to have lots and lots of different minority groups that can embrace being in an accepted environment. I think it'd be really nice for us to kind of adopt the pride and work with businesses to put their own kind of initiatives in place that everybody can come together. And, you know, pride isn't just for the LGBT community, it's for everybody to come and learn and explore and raise 100%. That profile.
As somebody that goes and is proud to be part of the community, I think pride is a really important thing. And it's nice to see more and more businesses getting behind it. I've noticed, you know, Co-op were there at the last Bristol Pride as well. So we're starting to see, I think, as people in the community, more people embracing it. But the question that we often, people ask or say, you know, why do you need that? Why do you think it's important, I suppose, that pride still exists?
I think it's also really important that you have leaders like yourself that feel confident enough to allow people to celebrate who they are. I think that there needs to be a mix of different types of people leading from the top, which is exactly kind of what you spoke about. And I think that's vital in order to make people feel comfortable to be who they are, but also encourage other people to support that.
I think pride as well, it gives you an opportunity to celebrate diversity, promote diversity. You know, diversity is a huge strength. It's critical to the success of any business. You know, it enables people to foster innovation, foster creativity, and that's, you know, a key ingredient to any successful business out there.
Yeah, and also I think it's really important, isn't it, that everybody feels comfortable to celebrate it. You don't have to be LGBT to go and enjoy that. You can go and support your friends, your family, or encourage people to feel that they can be vulnerable, be open, be not even vulnerable. It shouldn't be vulnerability. It should just be normality, shouldn't it? That they're welcomed into the space and they can share that with the people that they care about. You mentioned pride and the importance of the community that you're involved in, and you're very passionate about supporting that. I just want to mention for a minute, so Jasmine, before we started this, there are around something 300 odd bids across the country, and they are there to bring businesses together to build the communities. You don't have any funding to run a project. You would love to run one. And what would you need from the businesses in order to do that? Is it funding from them?
I don't necessarily think it's funding. I think it's an appetite and enough manpower to all club together and do something. I think what really comes behind successful events is everybody sort of standing up and saying, yeah, we're for this and we're going to do something, and lead by example, you know, like make sure that everybody is represented to push that event forward. I think, you know, we're quite a small bid, so generally our funding is, you know, relatively small. But if there's big kind of flavours to do something creative and innovative, and like you said, you know, innovation, pride allows innovation. It allows people to be creative and be themselves, to show up and, you know, put on a great show for the community.
I think the more people as well that get behind it, you know, the bigger the event comes. And, you know, Bristol Pride's one of the largest events, you know, or pride parades in the country. And I think, you know, hopefully, you know, by myself and my organisation getting behind it, that other organisations locally within Bristol and within the area that my organisation's based, that, you know, that they'll get involved in. There's one side of actually the funding and the money side, but there's also about raising that awareness and supporting people from that community.
Yeah, and there needs to be an appetite, doesn't it? There needs to be somebody that drives it initially. I mean, Bristol Pride's fantastic now, but there would have been a day where that didn't exist, and that would have had to have started somewhere. And I think we need to have more of that. Can we take almost the model of how that grew and share that somewhere else so we can have more of this? Because we don't have enough of it. I mean, you want it, you can't have it, it's not there right now. How do we build that momentum within a community where it isn't there right now, but there might be individuals that are keen?
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think it's about an individual has got to stand up and start the movement. It's like you said, you know, we're doing this today. We want to start a movement and a conversation. You know, getting people on board and finding someone that's got that passion to really drive it forward is, I think, the key starting point.
Yeah.
Looking at you to have that passion now.
I personally think that everything starts with conversations, and everything is built on strong relationships. You know, everybody trusts somebody or something, and that's what you have to do. And I think in order, like, we go out and speak to so many business owners, and quite a lot of those groups are independent businesses. Lots of people work for franchises, lots of people work for other larger organisations or corporate companies, and it's about building relationships directly with your community. I think if you build those relationships, then they will also expand to their trusted networks, who will, you know, it's the eyes and the ears of the town, it's the eyes and the ears of people's own communities, it's building out from their heart and what they care about.
And I think people that are in the LGBT community need to be brave. You know, it is difficult to come out and say, you know, I'm gay or I'm bisexual, and, you know, I want something different for my business or my industry. You know, it's been really hard from an association perspective to try and take the lead and make a movement in franchising for Pride. You know, we've been trying now for a few years, and it's great to have people that, you know, will come and be on this panel and push forward for the same things.
And I think also it's worth mentioning that it's not just about supporting Bristol Pride, it's about supporting the LGBT plus community throughout the whole year. You know, it's not just that one event. What else?
Or that one month.
Or that 1 month. What else can we be doing to support them? And I work locally with a project called the Matthew Tree Project in Bristol, and you know, support people who've fallen on really hard times. And my organisation are a source of employment now for people from there. And the first of their client that I took on is part of the LGBT plus community. So it's amazing to have that relationship with projects locally too, and I'm looking at the moment in the process of reaching out to LGBT plus charities and other local organisations to see what more I can do in that field to help support them. So it's not just, it's great that we do Bristol Pride, it's great that we talk about it, it's great that we decorate the restaurants, it's great that we have the policies in place, that we have the culture that we have within the restaurant, that it's, you were mentioning about brand trust, that people trust both as a employee and as a customer, that they can come to the restaurant and they feel safe, they feel included. But it's what more can we do in that space throughout the year?
Yeah, it's consistency, isn't it? And building that dialogue across, like you say, continuously, so that we can bring people on the journey.
And it's language as well. You know, if you think of a cis male, he might be privy to conversations or meetings and hear things that he doesn't notice as offensive, because he's not from a minority group. But if you're privy to being in that meeting and you identify as somebody that is a minority group, then something that's said may offend you, but you might not feel confident enough to speak out. So it's also about raising awareness with people who are in non-minority groups to listen out for language that's not appropriate for the time and the place.
And I think it's hard as a person within the community to raise something that would seem so small and insignificant to somebody else. So I was at an event the other week, and I was on a panel, we'd had a whole conversation, and one of the other panelists referred to me as a gentleman, and I was absolutely mortified. And it was one of those things where you kind of try and style it out, but I think it's things like that come up, which it feels ignorant, and you don't know how to address it, and it's being open enough that people know where they can go with things like that.
But in that instance, how did you feel comfortable enough to correct the person? How did you deal with that?
Not publicly, not on stage. I did afterwards. It's not the first time for me, but you kind of feel like it comes with the territory. I just have to roll with it.
Yeah, I was also in a meeting the other day, and a gentleman, I was the only female in the meeting, and a gentleman said about, we need to say, come on boys, or something. And all I could then, for the rest of the meeting, focus on is that you've said, come on boys, because for me, I think, well, first of all, we're not all boys. Second of all, that's not how I feel this should be addressed. So then I completely lost interest in the rest of the meeting. Like, I couldn't fixate off of thinking about, well, what about everybody else?
Yeah.
So it just made whole thing.
The things that you want to say in a given situation and the things that you actually say are two completely different things.
And there's clearly a long way to go in terms of people like yourself even feeling comfortable to have spoken up in that instance. And, you know, you hope instances like that don't even, aren't going to occur again. But if they do, that you have the confidence to be able to, to speak to them about it.
And style it out.
So
And style it out, exactly.
to your point, and I absolutely agree with you, Laura, you know, you shouldn't feel like you have to deal with that, or that should just comes with the territory. I just don't think that feels good. And I do want to read another stat that we've got from the report, and it actually says, I often face verbal harassment, insults and misgendering from customers at work for the way I dress and identify. I don't feel supported by my managers or co-workers, and it's taking toll on my mental health. What can I do to encourage my workplace to step up? So there's actually a bigger problem here. So what you deal with on the day is what you deal with on the day. What's the impact to people after the event or multiple events? How is this taking its toll on people? Have you experienced anything in your workplace, Laura, you know, within the situation, some of the situations described? How are these staff dealing with it after the event?
Yeah, I mean, it's always really, really difficult, and it feels really difficult as well as an employer, you know, and as the business owner, that's happening to them when they're at work, you know, because that's not the culture that we have within the workplace. But unfortunately, we can't control sort of the customer's behaviour. But you know, it's about creating that safe environment for them within the restaurant. You know, it's about you know, having those policies in place. We have a gender identity policy. We have a transgender policy. You know, we have that so that we're also raising that awareness, also educating our managers and those who are not part of the LGBT plus community. But it's, you know, we want to be able to recognise, celebrate, promote diversity and inclusion, and that is so important.
But not all businesses do they? You know, so you think about it, and it, you know, it's come up for us. There are certain policies that you don't have to have in an employment contract. You don't have to have a mental health policy. You don't have to have a policy around menopause. You don't have to have a policy around LGBT plus. It's something that you don't have to have. I mean, it'd be great that it's a legal requirement that employers have something and include something so that, you know, people know what to do when circumstances arise that make them uncomfortable.
Absolutely, and I think it's not. You want organisations to have it so that if issues do arise, they get dealt with. You know that there is that zero tolerance approach if it does happen to any kind of harassment or discrimination, and that's really, really important. And going back to your point, Emily, about the mental health. You know, mental health right now is a huge issue. You know, 1 in 4 people last year experienced mental health issues. You know, I employ 120 people, so that's a huge amount of my own employees, and those both from the LGBT plus community, but also those from other backgrounds. And it's how we address that and deal with that and support our team within the workplace. Yeah,
absolutely. And it goes one step further, actually. So this is horrendous. 1 in 5 LGBTQIA plus people have experienced a hate crime or incident because of their sexual orientation or gender identity in the last 12 months. And only 4 out of 5 of those incidents, 4 out of 5 of those incidents go unreported. So people are living in acceptance that they have to put up with that.
I'm not even remotely surprised by that stat.
No, I'm not one bit surprised by that stat.
But how do we change this? I think we're running this now, we're having this conversation because we want to open the dialogue and we need change. What are some of the practical steps that anybody, whether they identify within this population or not, could do to try and shift this? It's just not okay, is it?
No, I mean, it's totally unacceptable, and stats like that just make me incredibly sad. And we as a business owner, I just need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to promote diversity, promote inclusion, to recognise all the DEI events, you know, Pride Month, International Women's Day, you know, all the religious events as well, whether that be Diwali or Eid or Christmas, you know, whatever it is, we need to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to promote that and to talk about it and to have that speak up culture as well within the restaurant.
I 1,000% think it's about education. It's educating people so they know more about, you know, how it can make other people feel. I think case studies and stuff are really important. I think they are hard-hitting. When you read something about a hate crime, you know, we had an awards finalist a few years ago, and his story was just unreal. But it makes you stand up and take notice. And I think it's more about educating people on, you know, pronouns. You know, as someone that's even in the community, you know, the additional letters with the LGBTQIA plus, you know, you start to get to the stage where you're like, oh, what do they all mean? And it's making sure that people know and just fully understand what it is, how it works, and how they should act and behave.
Yeah, and it's around confidence through education, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the more you talk about something, or the more people share things, so for example this video, the further and wider it goes, then the more people will have conversations just about this itself. So it's about allowing people to feel comfortable to have conversations, and I think that when people have conversations and they feel comfortable that they can ask questions as well. I think that if you're a person that isn't in the community and feels like, oh, I'm saying the wrong thing, I'm doing the wrong thing, it's about allowing them to feel comfortable to ask questions to broaden their own knowledge just as much as anything else, because everybody needs to feel that they can speak up and talk about stuff, but also within your work. Like for me, we look after a lot of small businesses, and I have my own small business as well. A lot of those policies, you know, if you're a market trader, you don't have policies, you don't have any of that. You are you, and you show up and you sell your product and you move on and you go to the next thing. So policies as well have to be, you know, in corporate organisations, everybody can have policies, but those managers and those staff members and those customers need to also understand policy, because otherwise it's just a piece of paper that falls in a folder that falls in another folder and gets locked away. So policy is only valuable if people are actually acting and delivering those values. And those values as well comes person-centric. I think everything needs to be person-centric. Wherever you go, wherever you shop, you invest so much in people just as much as you do their brand. So I think allowing smaller companies that are maybe one-man bands or market traders, or, you know, people going and selling tabletop things, that they feel that they could be adopting these theories, but in ways that they can access.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, having ambassadors and stuff as well. You know, we should have an ambassador in the franchising community. But, you know, having somebody that you know, if you are uncomfortable or you're not sure, or you think it's something you should just brush under the carpet, you know, just having someone that you can go and talk to, check in and say, you know, this is what happened to me. Is that okay? And someone might say, oh, no, it's not, but this is what you can do about it.
Yeah, so somebody trusted, like a champion, something like that, that understands all the policies. Let's be honest, there are so many policies. There's policy for policy. I think it's easy to get confused. I loved what you said about the people-centric pit thing, and I think about bringing this back to, you know, the practical things that businesses can do. Well, the first point of contact is recruiting somebody. There's an onboarding process, there's probably an induction, and there'll be initial conversations with a line manager and a team. And I think just having the conversation at that point, checking in and seeing, you know, are there certain things that they might be uncomfortable with? And letting them know that it's a safe environment and space, and they can talk about any topic. It's absolutely okay to do that.
But you wouldn't necessarily want to have that conversation right from the outset.
No.
You know, it's something where you might not be comfortable right at the beginning. So I think once you get to know people, if you have a person that's responsible, it could be a people person. I know you have like huge, you know, structures and stuff in McDonald's, you know, but there is that person that you can step out. Businesses are investing now in, you know, mental health first aid training, and having a mental first aid, you know, ambassador, or somebody in the business that you would go to for that kind of stuff. So I just think it's making sure that it's wider, it's more inclusive.
Yeah.
And just to that point, all my senior management team and myself, we've been mental health first aid trained, and it's just giving my team the tools to be able to help support them and support the team through any issues that they might experience.
It's education again,
Absolutely.
isn't it? We've done the same thing, and I think, you know, we have a duty of care to any employee when they come on board, to educate them in the culture, the values, the way of working, and in turn educate ourselves on actually their needs. And whether they're comfortable at that point or not to divulge that, that's fine, but allowing them to know that we care. And it's okay to share that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, me too.
And also, I think just on the recruitment point, it's really important that we don't forget that our role when recruiting people is to find the most suitable candidate.
Absolutely.
You know, background shouldn't come into that, you know, and so we just need to make sure that you're not influenced by any bias in any way when it comes to recruiting people.
Yeah.
I think everything's about communication and inclusivity. So do you have like a specific way that like you put together your job specs to make them really inclusive?
So we just make sure that the language that we're using is as objective and as fair as possible, just to ensure that we are, as inclusive as we can be, and making sure we're finding the right people to come and work within McDonald's, and that's something that is really, really important.
Something that we've seen, and before we started this campaign, is that there are many companies that, you might have Pride Month or a particular day of representation, and someone will change, their profile picture for the day,
Yep.
or they'll stick some rainbow out of the side of their logo. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because the following week it's normally Impact until back to normal, or the following month. So what do we do? We think that's do we think that's good, or do we think that we should change the way that we're thinking about supporting?
I think sticking a rainbow on your logo for a short period of time means nothing if you're not actively implementing I don't like using the word policy, but if you're actively using those changes within your company throughout the whole time, then great. But I just think sometimes it's a bit of a marketing campaign in the sense of, look at me, this is what I'm doing, when actually you're not doing anything. I think it's to use that logo, you should be there should be kind of rules in place that to use that logo, this is what it means we're doing.
Some substance.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, because it is actually something where you look to the flag and think that's a safe place. It's a really strange thing. It's obviously changed loads over the years, but for me, it's a sign of, I don't know, solidarity. It's we're supporting, we welcome you as you are. So I think you're right though. 100%. It can't just be something that people pop up and just use. I'd want to know if I was walking in there that I'm not going to get called something horrific if I walk through the door.
But also, how do you police that, in the sense of, I might go into somewhere and see that flag and think, right, everybody's safe here.
Yeah.
But then how do they police that in terms of actually somebody else comes in and they don't know if they abide by that because they're so...
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? We talk about brand values and standards and all of that sort of stuff. There are literally no brand values. You can just pop up the flag wherever you want. But I think it's knowing that people are doing it for genuinely, I think, the right reasons.
It's the intention, isn't
yes,
it? Yeah.
It's the intention is, I want to support this and we are open as a business.
Yeah, I think it's really, sometimes it gets referred to as rainbow washing is a term I've heard, and I think it's really important that brands are not using that for commercial gain, that they're not just changing their logo, that what are they actually doing to make a difference and to support the LGBT plus community.
Yeah. I think on this point as well, I'm going to open up a question to everyone, because we've talked about a lot of different areas, challenges. What could businesses do to actually, some practical things, if they really do want to support, and let's say they are changing the colour of their logo for a month, and maybe the intention is that actually they think that is them supporting. And I think we've established it isn't, unless you've got substance behind it. So what do we think businesses could do, or individuals could do, to start the momentum, to join this, to create a bit of a movement?
I think, first of all, I think I mentioned before, it's laying the foundation, so it's making sure you've got those policies in place. Secondly, it's making sure that you're promoting DE&I within your restaurant, that you're creating that right culture, that you've got a speak-up culture, that you've got an open door policy. I think those things are really key. So, every month I will, for the year, I set a date and a time that I'm going to be available within my restaurant for my team to come and speak to me. I'm there most days anyway, but it gives them that opportunity to be able to come and speak to you if they wish.
I think for smaller organisations especially, it's about having conversations. It's about having conversations. It's about talking to other people. It's about talking to people in and out of the community, and sharing, educational resources where people can listen to things and learn more. Invite more opportunity for people to talk about how they're feeling, and like you said about case studies, I think it does really hit home if someone has a conversation with you of like, wow, I cannot believe that you've had to experience that. And I think that message needs to be shared far and wide.
I think for us, we need to find resources that we can centralise and talk about it more. You know, we are guilty ourselves as an association of focusing on Pride Month, you know, and for us it's we've tried to start the conversation, this is great, but now what practical stuff and what practical guidance can we give to franchisors that are smaller startup businesses that they can then give to their franchisees. You know, we know that franchising, there's 50,000 franchise units as part of our sector. We can touch a lot of those through practical guidance and advice that we can give, webinars that we can run. And I do think we need to have an LGBTQIA+ ambassador.
Yeah. And maybe some guidance and practical tips, even a toolkit recommendation for franchisors and even franchisees. You know, we know that franchising is such a diverse community anyway, serving so many different sectors. I mean, there's something for everybody really, isn't there, in franchising? And so we do have a duty of care and responsibility by that nature to ensure that community does feel empowered to do the right thing when it comes to this area. And I think actually we've got an opportunity here within the BFA and the franchise community to continue the conversation. And we represent a huge amount of small business across the UK, and there lies the start for the movement. And I think if we continue the conversation, hopefully we'll be in a different place this time next year or this time in 5 years. Does anyone have any final comments for anyone that's watching today? I think we've taken the conversation in many directions, but any final comments for people that might be watching and looking for any advice or tips?
I just think it's, be proud of who you are. If you are in the community, you know, you could be an example to other people in your business, other peers, so just be proud.
Absolutely, you know, be yourself, always be yourself. Be proud of who you are, make a difference, and always be kind.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think if you can take one thing and share it with somebody else that might not actively look to learn about this, then that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've just said. Thank you so much, ladies, for the conversation. We hope you've enjoyed watching. And please, any questions, or if you want to get in touch, just drop us those questions in the chat or contact the BFA.org. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Q&A section for our LGBTQIA plus equality and inclusion within UK business and franchising. I'd love to welcome back our panel. We've got Laura, Pip and Jasmine. Firstly, thank you to all of you that have been watching. We've already received many questions through, so we will kick off with some of those. Remember, you can continue to send your questions in whilst we're here. So the first question we have in, guys, is around how do businesses avoid rainbow washing? And how can we tackle the effectiveness of those actions over time? I'm going to come to you first with that one, Laura.
Thanks, Emily, and hi everyone. Great to be here this afternoon. I think it's really important that businesses and individuals are actively trying to make a difference, and that they genuinely care about promoting, equality, inclusion, and acceptance within the workplace. For example, Pride Month, it's not about adding a rainbow to your logo. It's about actively celebrating and promoting that diversity and inclusion within your organization. So for example, within my organization, in my restaurant, we will decorate both the staff and the customer areas. We celebrate Bristol Pride every year, which we're really proud to do, and we take part in the parade every year as well.
That's great. Thanks, Laura. Pip, what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
I actually think it's really good for raising awareness. I don't think the brand should do it if they don't stand behind it and believe in it. But absolutely, the more people that celebrate Pride, get involved with the rainbow washing, if you want to call it that, but putting the rainbow flags out and showing their support, I think it's a good thing. I do think over a period of time, brands do need to look at what they're doing. And whether they are actually supporting something or whether they're just putting it up for the sake of it. But right now, I think it's really good for raising awareness.
Yeah, Great. And Jasmine, you're working with multiple businesses. So what are your thoughts on this?
I think for us, it's about demonstrating commitment as well. So I think it's about committing to supporting the community as a whole. So it's about responding and acting on non-inclusive language and making sure that you have an opportunity to educate and explain to people why you think their comments are wrong, or access to podcasts or books that they can then, develop their own learning and make sure that they're adapting environments to make everybody feel included.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this one very briefly in the discussion a moment ago, and that was around, if the intention is you want to support, there needs to be some substantive action behind it and a bit of a continual strategy rather than just a one stake in the ground moment in time. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. We have another one here. So this is from Southern Co-op. So they've got some great training for unconscious bias, and they're asking, how do we tackle this within our teams? Pip, I'm going to come to you first on this one.
Okay, well, so for us, we know, as many people watching this will know, the association rebranded at the start of the year. And one of the things that we wanted to do there was really start looking at what our values were and what the behaviours were, not just of the staff internally at the BFA, but of the whole industry. And one of those was all about celebrating individuality. It's making sure that we're giving people the opportunity to be their authentic selves and put that forward. So for us, it's part of the onboarding process when someone is coming into the staff at the BFA is, listen, celebrate individuality. This is who we are, what we are, and be your authentic self.
Yeah, fab. Laura, what about you in this one? Do you guys have anything at McDonald's?
Yeah, so I think, just following on from what Pip was saying, I think it's about creating a culture, first of all, that is safe, respectful, and inclusive. One where people feel that they're able to be themselves, proud to be themselves. I think within what we're doing within the restaurant, if I look at recruitment, for example, it's making sure that we are hiring people because they're the most suitable candidate for the job. That the recruitment process is as objective as possible, that we reduce any influence of bias within the process.
Yeah, Jasmine, have you got anything to add on this one?
Yeah, I think it's really important within company culture to invest not only in your company, but in your staff's well-being. So making sure there's plenty of initiatives for people to feel safe and be in a supportive environment. I also think it's really important to think outside of the box how you want your company to be perceived and received by its potential customers, and that will channel into who your customers become and how you train their thought processes.
Okay, we've got more questions coming in, so we'll move on. We've got someone asking, this is a difficult one. So I've had it before where customers make derogatory comments towards some of my LGBT staff. Are there any tips that I could use to approach these situations better? This is a difficult one. I'm coming straight to you, Laura, being in that service industry.
Thanks, Emily. I think, unfortunately, this is something that we see a lot. We see our staff being discriminated against. And I think what's really important is that we have a zero tolerance approach to it, whether that's internally with amongst our people or if that's from our customers. So it's about dealing with those situations the best way possible. We've had to report hate crimes to the police, and if that's as far as you've got to do, then I would recommend doing that to really make sure that you're sticking with your zero tolerance approach to any kind of abuse that within the restaurant. So that would be my advice, but it's about just creating that culture where hopefully instances like that are few and far between.
Absolutely. Pip, I'm just wondering whether you've got any examples here where you might have some specific thoughts on how someone could support or what someone should do to support another.
I think it's knowing how to tackle it as the employee, as the person that receives the comments. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So for me, it's knowing what you can say that is in a polite way, because on the receiving end of it, your response would be emotive. So it's making sure that your staff have the tools, I suppose, to know how to confront that issue themselves, and what to say back to a customer, but then where to report it, because you want to feel supported as somebody, and know, one, how to handle the situation, but secondly, where to escalate it so that that can be dealt with later down the line. So for me, it's all about policies. And I think we touched on this in the programme, having an LGBTQIA plus policy so that your staff know what to do and where to do it. It's not a legal requirement, but I think it should be best practice in businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually moves on to our next question. So I'm going to kick straight into that one. So do you have any suggestions on how I can educate my employees and managers about LGBTQ plus issues, including pronouns and gender identity? So this is all around that education piece. Laura, I'm going to kick off with you if I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pip just mentioned it. I think first of all, you've got to lay the groundwork, which is with the policies. It's so important that we've got these policies in place to help form the right behaviours, from the offset. So, for example, within my organisation, we've got a transgender policy, a gender identity policy, a diversity inclusive policy, and I think it's then about speaking up, within the restaurant, for example, within my team. What do they ask them what they feel comfortable about being addressed as. It's not something to be afraid of. Talk to them, and so that we then know how they want to be known as. We have pronoun name badges. We have different uniforms available, so we're doing everything we can to make sure that those individuals feel like they can be themselves when they come to work, which is really, really important.
And you're mentioning numerous policies here. At what point do you kind of introduce people to them and their content, and so that they're familiar with that?
So we do something called a welcome meeting. So once they've had an interview, they'll be invited to a welcome meeting where they'll do all their contract. And so it's basically the first time that they're ever coming to work that we are going through that with them, just so that they understand how important it is, how important it is, and how we have, a zero tolerance approach to any form of bullying or harassment or discrimination within the workplace, but also that they're aware of the policies that we have in place. So there's that educational piece too, which is really, really important. And also at that point too, it might be that individual is part of the LGBTQIA plus community. So it's what can we do to help them? So what uniform would they like? What name badge would they like? So that when they do come to work for their first day, as in their uniform, ready to start on Fry's or whichever station it is, that they feel comfortable and they feel authentic and they feel really proud to be there in their McDonald's uniform.
Fantastic. So it's strong foundations from the start. Pip, I'm coming to you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything Laura's just said, but I do think there also needs to be a check-in process. When you start with any business, the amount of information you get right at the beginning, there's so much to take in. So having something where there is an update fairly regularly for staff internally, so your managers know, but so that you're making sure that your managers and your employees are compliant with those processes. So just making sure, I think that there's a check-in and a reminder of what that looks like.
And Jasmine, what about your experience working with multiple businesses? What can you share here?
I mean, we predominantly work with lots of small businesses and entrepreneurs. So they are quite often in a position where they don't have the luxury of policy. So I think for single person run businesses, it's really important for them to embrace the culture that they want to embed. And potentially, if their business grows into a larger corporation, they're open to considering, like I said before, how they want their business to be seen, but also maybe look at locally what LGBTQIA plus community groups there are, if they can, make sure that they're promoting listening for themselves and others, and make sure they're always prepared to learn, and then they can implement some of those solutions into their new business.
Right. The next question we've got coming through is specifically around small or startup businesses. So is any advice for somebody that's looking to promote LGBTQ plus inclusion and diversity within their small or startup business? Jasmine, I'm going to come back to you now because that's where you're working, and then we'll open it out.
Yeah, I think to start off with, I've ran and opened a small business myself. So kind of like what Laura and Pip were saying, there's so much to take on board when you're doing anything new for the first time, that it's really important, I think, that you can respond and act or be ready with some kind of tools for yourself of how you want to tackle that. So again, you know, listen to podcasts, make sure that you address any non-inclusive language from the get-go, make sure that you think of your company values from the beginning, and maybe some top things that are really important to you as an individual that you want to make sure feeds through the veins of your business. And if that's through people and culture, then I think then from the beginning, it feeds into itself. If you want to be really inclusive in terms of people and culture, then the LGBTQIA plus community has a strong place there.
Fantastic. Laura, I know you're really involved in doing things with your business, so maybe you could share with us a little bit about that and how you got involved in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's just so important to celebrate all, you know, DEI events, but in particular, obviously, with LGBTQIA plus community, and celebrating it and recognizing it. And I think it was actually a very unfortunate incident that happened within 5 days of me taking over my first restaurant franchise, where a customer had come around the drive-through and had been incredibly racist and incredibly discriminatory against one of my employees who is part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I think at that point, whilst I've always been a huge supporter and done everything I can to promote awareness and promote equality and everything that I do, both as a business owner and as an individual, it made me really realise that we've got so far to go in this space. You know, we've come so far, but we've got so much to do. And I think that really, I suppose, sparked a fire within me to really try and do what I can to support. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, you know, we're really proud that my organisation, Marmalade Restaurants, you know, that we sponsor Bristol Pride, that we attend the parade every year, that we acknowledge it within the restaurants. There's decorations absolutely everywhere within both the staff and customer areas. But also that we are recognising, you know, other events throughout the year.
Yeah, that's great. Let's move on to, I think this is one of our last questions, but what if some people in business are not comfortable with supporting the community because of their personal religious beliefs? Jasmine, I'll come to you first on this one.
Okay, I think that if your personal or religious beliefs aren't supportive of all communities, then I think generally you're also part of a community. So it's about, again, kind of raising awareness to be respectful to everybody and everybody's beliefs, whether that's personal, religious, or subjective to anything. So it's about promoting listening and being supportive within organisations.
Pip?
I agree wholeheartedly with Jasmine. I think, you know, this is an area where we wouldn't be talking about it if it didn't need attention and focus. So it's like everything. It's letting people be able to live their authentic self without discrimination. So ensuring 1000%, you know, if somebody's not comfortable with it and they don't want to promote it, that's fine. But they need to accept that it's something that is an underrepresented area. It does need focus, like, you know, probably their own area. So, yeah, I agree with Jasmine. I think she summarised that great.
Have you got any points on that, Laura?
I mean, I'll just add that, you know, look, everyone's entitled to their beliefs, but, you know, it's really important to respect the rights of the LGBTQIA plus individuals. And it's not about having special rights, it's about equal rights. And I think that's really, really important to make sure that messaging gets across.
That's what I meant to say.
Equal rights. Well, we all have our own opinions and views, and I think we just need to be respectful of one another's, don't we? So that does bring us to an end. So I just want to say thank you for watching and for all your questions in this insight session, which is a testament to the power of inclusivity within the world of franchising and indeed in the broader business community. Franchising is a business model that thrives on collaboration and community. The BFA recognises that true success in this field is only achievable when it embraces and celebrates diversity. And that's why these sessions are designed to be inclusive spaces for open dialogue where we listen, learn and share experiences. Let's go forward and continue with positive change, learning and growth within the world of franchising and beyond. For more information, please head over to thebfa.org. Or if you've got any questions, please email press@thebfa.org. I mustn't forget to say thank you to the McDonald's for partnering with us on these insight sessions. And once again, thank you for watching.